Hi, everyone. I'm Osiris Stephen.
And I'm Nina Simmons. And we're the hosts of the Love and Cannabis podcast. We started our podcast over a year ago to share our story of how we are helping our son manage the severe epilepsy with CBD oil. Aiden was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was just 2 years old. And each week we talk with medical professionals, parents, business owners, and other cannabis advocates. All of our guests are so inspiring, but this coming week, on Friday, we have a very unique guest.
That's right, Nina. On Friday, October 23rd, we sit down with Bruce Linton, the former CEO of Canopy Growth Corporation and one of the true cannabis titans. Bruce has done so much to improve the lives of so many people, and we are honored that he took time out to talk about the future of cannabis with our listeners.
We hope that everyone will tune in on October 23rd to hear a special interview with Bruce Linton on the
Love and Cannabis podcast.
For too many years, families of children with devastating illnesses have felt helpless as they watch their child suffer. Today, they're taking matters into their own hands and finally finding relief treating their child with cannabis. These are their stories.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode.
Hello. I hope everyone's doing well.
Yes, everyone's out there safe and trying to get back to some normalcy, I guess. But tonight we have an awesome guest that, at late, we haven't really got into this part of cannabis, which is the science. The people behind, you could say, the R&D aspect of it. The people who are there formulating, creating ideas, looking different parts of the plant and how it could benefit humanity, overall. So we are very fortunate to speak with Dr. Chris Adlakha, who's a pharmacist in Austin, Texas. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Adlakha, correct?
Adlakha is correct. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. It's our pleasure for having you. So right now you're an owner and independent compounding pharmacist that's located in Texas?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. I'm a UT grad. Been originally from Houston. Been in Austin, Texas since UT, minus the 4 years I spent in Boston, getting my doctorate in pharmacology. After getting my doctorate, I moved back to Austin. I had the pleasure of, while I was in pharmacy school, doing a residency with a compounding pharmacy. And so the organic chemistry of pharmacy has always been the most intriguing to me. And so when I moved back, I started working for Walgreens because I was in a lot of debt. And so I bit the retail corporate monstrosity, and I quickly learned that the level of care was definitely lacking. Mm-hmm. And so after about 3 years, I ventured off and started my own compounding pharmacy in North Austin. And since then have opened another 4 pharmacies, and we do specialized meds, customized meds, and everything that a Walgreens or CVS would do, but at a more, higher service level, including delivery and medication management and things of that sort.
So, Chris, can you just explain what exactly does it mean, compounding pharmacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So compounding pharmacy is essentially when, beyond having just a bunch of shelves with manufactured drugs that are counted and put in bottles and given to patients, we actually have laboratories that we're able to create anything that's not commercially available. So we do a lot of turning a lot of what are only available as oral meds into topicals, or perhaps a patient that is a child that needs a drug that only comes in adult doses. We'll reformulate that into a lower dose, a candy bar, popsicle. We do suppositories. We do rapid dissolving tablets. So the main catch there is we can compound anything that's not commercially available. So combining drugs into one dosage form. We deal with a lot of plastics, pain, endocrinology, kind of across the board, but a lot more R&D and a lot more of actual pharmaceutics versus the standard of working at a Walgreens.
So how does that work? So do you need a doctor's prescription, or do you work? How does that work in terms of getting that individualized medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exactly right. So we work directly with physicians across the state of Texas. We don't do anything outside of Texas, but we work with a few hundred physicians that, let's give pain, for example. Everyone's, I think, now well aware of kind of the opioid pandemic that's occurred. And so we try to find solutions for pain doctors where now, instead of just prescribing a bunch of opioids, they can prescribe a topical formulation or a homeopathic combination of supplements, anything that we think can provide relief that isn't debilitating like opioids are. And so, that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do. We've compounding is what has also kind of driven us into the cannabis world and working with CBD. From the point of view from providers, when CBD started really trending through the marketplace, as a pharmacy owner and as a pharmacist, we had a lot of patients coming in and asking us for advice, asking us to recommend a brand. And as you guys know, with kind of the lack of regulations that are out there, it was tough to put yourself on the line in recommending something when you hear that 90% of the stuff out there isn't what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. So that's one of the questions I had, because you mentioned it, R&D. Are a lot of companies avoiding R&D, or do they have the budget for R&D? Or are they more, like you said, 90% is all marketing, no real product?
I think that's the ultimate problem is, as a compounding pharmacy, when we compound a medication, that medication is not FDA approved. But the setting that the medication is made in is regulated by the FDA. So, we have very strict standards that we have to abide by to ensure quality control and safety in anything that we put out. And it's because of the FDA that we have that list of guidelines to ensure that everything we put out has the safety and quality that it should have. And so lab testing is, third-party lab testing is a big part of the end product. And unfortunately, up to now, and we are starting to see the FDA get more involved with CBD, but the ultimate problem has been, because there's no set standard, you've got all these different brands coming to market that are selling these quote unquote CBD products that they're putting together in their kitchen or in their basement. And that's just not the way it's supposed to be done.
So you're able to do this now under the FDA regulations. Now, are you actually handling the cannabis plant, or are we talking hemp?
Yeah, so so Texas, it's been a struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
Texas.
That's why I asked, because Texas is tough.
Yeah, Texas has been a struggle, and so, I'm happy to say for the first time that it's becoming a lot more normal with the farm bill that passed. Now, CBD is completely legal. Now, we are still a state where cannabis is not legal, and so. My expertise is more on the side of CBD and other cannabinoids outside of THC. Of course, we do have products that have THC, but they have to fall under the 0.3% legal limit. And so that's going to change. Texas will come around because, as you guys know, I mean, the use for cannabis is the science is there, the studies are there, it's significant, and it can help people. And at the end of the day, when you compare using cannabis versus these crazy drugs that have crazy addicting profiles and debilitating side effects, big pharma that's one question I get a lot as a pharmacist is, I don't understand if you own pharmacies, why is it that you're pushing these alternative medications when you own pharmacies? That doesn't make sense. And the answer to that is, well, big pharma is a powerful lobbying industry. And so that's a lot of the reason why cannabis has gotten the blowback that it's gotten. And it's honestly so enlightening now to see that's changing, and that people are starting to realize, wait a minute, this may just come from a plant, but it's effective, and there's studies backing it. And so in Texas, they just passed a bill that actually allows you to grow hemp. And so up until literally 2 months ago, that wasn't an option. And so all of our operations, what we've done is we've sought out to find CGMP, FDA regulated extraction labs or distribution centers in Colorado, some in Oregon. And we've basically, vetted their labs of their extracts. And so that's what we do. We buy these super high quality extracts, and we're able to reformulate those into gummies or tinctures or topicals, etc.
Wow, I got somebody for you in Texas if you want to know. We could talk about that later.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to I'm a small time Texas boy. I like using local businesses anytime that I can. I'm a small business owner myself, and so I'm excited to be able to work. And I've been approached by multiple people now that are getting into that space, and so I'm excited to be able to start working with some local sources and not having to go outside of Texas to get those extracts.
So we use a lot of different CBD companies for our son with his seizures, and we do see this term pharmaceutical grade, and we really never knew what that meant. So what does that mean exactly when a company uses that term and puts it on their label?
Yeah, to be honest, I hate to call it a marketing tactic.
Okay.
Because
call it as it is.
Call it as it is. I kind of assumed that
here's
too.
The thing, guys. Mm-hmm. Here's what's important is when you've got something that's trending through the market space mm-hmm. that everybody's talking about, and that you can put out a product, market it well, and people are going to buy it, and the only thing on your mind is dollars. You're not coming into that space and spending $1 million on a laboratory to do it correctly. And so that was kind of the unique position we had, where we've been making pharmaceuticals for 8 years now, and we've invested tons of money into our laboratories, and so we have all that machinery. And so when I think of pharmaceutical grade, I think of just the checks and balances of the equipment used in formulating products and the third-party testing that comes afterwards to confirm that the product is superior than the majority of the other things that are being marketed.
Okay, but then it could mean different things for different companies. Is that where you're based?
If you're labeling your brand of CBD with pharmaceutical grade, I guess the least I would say is that product better be being made in a ISO 5 certified USP 800 FDA regulated lab.
Got it.
If it's being made under those controlled settings, then there is definitely a separation of doing it that way versus in a warehouse without the proper equipment. And unfortunately, without having more stringent regulations in place, which by the way is changing and will continue to change. But we feel that from the pharmaceutical side of it, the pharmaceutical grade portion of it, it should be the norm. It should be the standard of if a consumer is buying a product, there's just a certain list of standards that should be in place that and checks and balances that are in place to ensure that what they're buying is authentic.
True.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Definitely.
Well, I'm okay. I'm gonna play devil's advocate in this point right now, being hypocritical to a certain extent as it relates to the FDA, because they approve a lot of medication that turn around and have these ill side effects, but yet when we're talking in reference to CBD or anything cannabis related, worst case scenario, you may be getting a product that's more, let's say, hemp seed oil or more olive oil. That's on a worst case. So what are the side effects in comparison to what they've approved over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And again, being a pharmacist and a pharmacy owner, I see firsthand kind of the dirty side that normal consumers don't see, that are related to big pharma and the FDA. And there's no denying that the FDA is also somewhat regulated by big pharma and has big pharma's best interest in mind. And so you think about the amount of dollars, the market cap of epilepsy drugs that come from big pharma, and then you think about them losing that market space because of that market cap due to cannabis. They have lots of money and they have really good lobbyists, and so that's a problem that has existed for years and years and years, and unfortunately it will continue to exist. But I think the key factor here is CBD is now become a nationally legal natural alternative medication, and so I have my faux pas with the FDA, but at the same time, I'm working very closely with the FDA as well as with state legislative on reforming the manufacturing process behind CBD and putting more strict standards in place and illustrating to them the difference of what we're doing within these labs versus what's happening in people's homes. There's it's crazy. The New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA put out they did a study and just randomly purchased, I think it was like 30 some odd products of different random CBD off Google, and they tested all of them, and 92% of them weren't what they said they were. Some of them had no CBD. Some of them had 10% of what it was supposed to have.
Wow.
There's no checks and balances, though. There's nobody that is checking and saying, are you doing this right? Is the product you're putting out, what you're labeling it with, actually what's in the bottle? And because the FDA hasn't put in a set of guidelines, they're actually legally not allowed to check it. And that's why you have, third-party agencies now that are kind of coming in and looking at that market space and saying, wait a minute, there is a huge difference. And maybe this is why I can go to a gas station now and buy a $8 bottle of CBD. Maybe perhaps it's not what it's supposed to be, or it's just hemp seed oil. Nobody knows. There's no checks and balances. And so, educating the average consumer on the difference it's so crucial, and really where we spend most of our time and effort is with that education.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're doing this as a pharmacist, because what we come to find out is that, like you were saying, for people, this is not just like some health and wellness. For people, this becomes their medicine, right? Like for Aiden, is to treat his seizure. So we want consistency. It's not like we're just taking this for health just because. We're taking this because it has a job to do, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So we want the consistency because we want it to always work, because one bottle for one can have 10%, because even a little change in the percentage of CBD could change how it affects someone, right?
Absolutely. As a pharmacist, that's the thing. When it comes to milligrams and dosage and consistency, it's just tried and true for us. That means everything, which is why we third party test everything, and not just for potency, but for ensuring there's no heavy metals, ensuring there's no pesticides. All of that testing costs a lot of money. I mean, we spend tons of money on the testing side of it, but that should be necessary. I'm sorry that cuts into your margins as a company, but at the end of the day, that's just a necessary thing. Just like Pfizer has to test everything they do, and Abbott has to test everything they do. It should be no different, because, like you said, though it may be looked at as alternative medication, I can tell you firsthand, I've seen patients that are taking 30 Norcos a day, which is an opioid, that we've been able to wean off to taking a couple a day, because they're now substituting it with CBD.
Wow.
Or kids that have ADHD that are being prone to this narcotic, Adderall or any of the other amphetamine salts that are out there now, when they could find relief from a plant that has no debilitating side effects. And so, all of that is it's so important.
Are you looking for a career change? I'm Carson Humiston, the founder of Angst, the cannabis industry's largest hiring platform. I'm so excited because on October 21st and 22nd, we are hosting the cannabis industry's first virtual hiring event. It's 2 days of great speakers, networking, and most importantly, jobs. We have over 50 cannabis companies all across the US hiring for more than 500 positions. This is the place to go to find your next job in the cannabis industry. To sign up, visit Vanks.com.
Yeah, you mentioned something about salts, which kind of triggered a thought in my mind. Why is salt seem to be part of certain medications that deals with the brain? I.e., example, Depakote, which is a valproic acid, which has sodium based.
Yep. It has to do with passing barriers. So there's essentially there are different blood-brain barriers that have to be crossed. And so you've got this synapse basically that occurs. And so sodium is a big part of a synapse occurring. And it's what creates that electrical force that allows the drug to penetrate. And so, there's salt, there's water-soluble drugs, there's fat-soluble drugs. And those, depending on the characteristics of the chemical of the drug, they have to cross different barriers within the brain. And so, and with CBD, as we know, CBD is a fat soluble molecule. I'll tell you guys, like, one of the most annoying things to me is when I hear about water soluble CBD. There's no such thing as water-soluble CBD. You can't change the characteristic of the chemical. It is what it is. If it's fat-soluble, it's fat-soluble.
Exactly.
Now you can nanonize it. You can use nanotechnology, and you can make it small enough where it can penetrate the lipid barrier. But at the end of the day, it's still not water-soluble. And so, there's just so much misinformation out there, and there's just such an array of products and different formulations now, and it's confusing. I mean, even to me, it's confusing. And so trying to put it all together, fact check everything and figure out the facts and then deliver that to the public is the ultimate goal.
I'm so glad you mentioned the water soluble part, because that kind of has been like this kind of up and coming thing. But like, if you know about like certain things like vitamin D, it's fat soluble. Like, you're not going to change what it is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
there's no way to turn something that's water soluble to fat soluble.
Yeah.
You can't. That's not a chemically possible process. And here's the thing, the other thing with let's call it nanotechnology CBD, right? Because all it is they use these glorified machines that put out these like electric waves that essentially take the CBD molecule and nanonize it, making it super, super small, under a certain number of microns, which is what's required for it to be able to pass through the barrier. And so the technology behind it makes 100% perfect sense. If you take a molecule and you make it small enough, then it is scientifically proven that yes, it can pass the barrier now. But here's the thing, that leads to other issues. So, CBD it is known, and it is now, I believe there's been studies done that have shown clinically that, like drugs, like any pharmaceutical drug that you get that's prescribed, your liver is a big drug metabolizing organ.
Yes.
And so you've got these P450 enzymes.
Yes.
And so when you go into this water soluble product now, and again, as a pharmacist, right, what goes through my mind with CBD is safety. So drug interactions. Well, if I don't want to give a patient something that is going to make his his blood sugar drug not work anymore, or his hypertension medication not work anymore. And so you increase the risk of those interactions when you talk about quote unquote water soluble products, because now the idea is, oh, well, I can ingest a capsule. I don't have to use a sublingual drop. Well, the sublingual drop is, there's a reason why sublingual drops, they have their benefits. And one of the big ones is you skip the first pass effect, you skip liver metabolism. And so you can now give it to a patient that's on 6 other medications and not have to worry that you're inhibiting an enzyme that's going to inhibit the efficacy of one of his other prescriptions. And so, there's, again, the problem that we face is that, unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that dollar signs is the only thing that's being seen. And, I get it. The marketing side of it is important, and growing your company is important, but educating and understanding the differences of why one form versus another has its benefits is crucial. It can't just be throwing money at a marketing campaign that makes you think if you take CBD that's not water soluble, it's ineffective. That's false. That's just not the case.
Now, could you go into the difference? Because I know everybody's focused on CBD, not realizing there's other cannabinoids like your CBDA and then your CBC. But one of the things that we're learning is about the CBDA, like the precursors.
Yep. CBDN, CBDG. There's and that's where a lot of for our own R&D, that's where a lot of our research and development is geared towards now.
Wow.
And so we're working with a lot of different cannabinoids that elicit different effects. So, humans we all have an ECS system, the endocannabinoid system. And CBD has certain receptors it binds to in that system that cause another, slew of events. CBN also has receptors that it binds to that CBD may not bind to, and so you find is that you get a different effect. And the beautiful thing is it really is kind of a miracle plant, because of all the good things that are documented from how we can manipulate the ECS system from these different cannabinoids. But the reality is there are different cannabinoids that come out of a hemp plant or a cannabis plant, and those different cannabinoids elicit different effects. And there's studies now. There's lots of studies that are published that scientists have worked directly with one cannabinoid or another. A good example of this is, the newest product that we're working on is an acne product. It's topical. And what we've done is we've taken CBC and CBN, both cannabinoids that they've not only have they been shown to inhibit cancer cell growth, but they also reduce inflammation. And we couple that with benzoyl peroxide, which is a over-the-counter acne product that you can get at any CVS or Walgreens that's been around for hundreds of years. But what we're finding in our initial R&D is we've got patients that have tried all sorts of things to defeat crazy acne, bacne, and they're using this CBC, CBN product, and it's working. And I again, because I work so closely with so many doctors, that's kind of where our R&D goes from our lab to third-party testing to doctors that sample it out and say, hey, I want to see if this works. And if it does, then they get more interested and they start running with it. And so you're absolutely right. There's so much research to be done on all of these different cannabinoids. I had a conversation with the guys that the founders of Elixinol, who were in the cannabis game years and years ago, I would almost call them pioneers, and they are now working with things like CBDA, which they're finding can lead to increasing metabolism and helping with weight loss. And some of their initial studies are remarkable. And so there is a ton of R&D to be done, and fortunately, there are a lot of medical governed companies out there now, and scientists that are seeing, hey, this is real. I mean, this is a huge potential. If I can take patients off opioids and they can start living their life, or if I can keep a child from being on Adderall because he's taking a dose of CBD instead, or I can help a schizophrenic patient or a bipolar patient instead of putting them on debilitating antipsychotics, that's like Nobel Prize stuff. I mean, that changes our world.
And I'm glad that you said that, because what happens is that we're finding that they may not be using CBD only, but they're lessen the pharmaceutical drugs. Like, so for example, with Aiden, if he wasn't for CBD, he would have been on a lot more Amphi,
Yep.
So
yep,
now
absolutely.
They're working. Like, I don't know if he'll go totally off pharmaceutical, but he's definitely on a lot less for the type of seizures that he has.
And man, like so seizures is, THC is a main component in helping with epilepsy. And so, being in Texas and not being able to work with higher doses of THC, if I had a child that was epileptic, I would have him on a cannabis product for seizures, because the evidence is there. I've looked at multiple studies, and THC is a major player in that. And another, again, as a pharmacist, a big question that we get, and especially working with pain doctors, is they drug test their patients, because if they are prescribing an opioid to them, they have to ensure that they're not abusing any other illicit drugs. And so failing a THC test is a big deal. And so, the good news though is now with the technology, there is plenty of evidence, and I've seen plenty of patient case studies of my own patients as well as doctors that I work with that have proven that if you're using products that have still maintained their chemical composure, and you haven't just rid off everything except the CBD, but you've found a process like CO2 extraction methods now that allow you to get rid of THC while still maintaining lipid profiles and other cannabinoid profiles, there's still so much health benefits to be had. And so again, that goes back to regulations, where the average consumer doesn't understand that. So we buy, again, being in Texas up until very recently, we haven't been in a position to be able to harvest our own crop and get our own extracts. And so we have vetted multiple companies in Colorado and in Oregon and tested multiple extracts. And what I can tell you is the lab results really speak for themselves. I mean, if you're getting an extract that was extracted, that the THC was taken out by using heat and ethanol, that extract is far inferior to a product that used natural solvent extraction method or a CO2 extraction method, where now you've gotten rid of THC, but you've maintained these crazy percentages of not just CBD, but CBG, CBN, CBC, CBDA, the list goes on. And so that's such a key education point for the average consumer is, hey, when I get asked a lot, well, when I'm going to buy a CBD product, what should I look for? Is there anything I can look for on the bottle that might let me know if this is a product that is actually, a superior product to any other product? There are definitely some things that can be looked for. Lab results, the extraction method used. If they're not telling you how it was extracted, it's because they probably spent a couple $100 for a kilo of that extract, when a CO2 extract that has crazy high percentages of all the cannabinoids minus THC cost anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000. So as a company, when you don't have a regulated body saying, no, it's not okay to market this quote unquote broad spectrum CBD product, when the numbers don't add up to what they would if you use this extract. And so educating the public on the differences and teaching them how to learn how to read labs and look at the concentrations of not just CBD, but everything else, making sure that the product they're using is actually whole plant and not just spiked with isolate. There's CBD now that's being synthetically made. It's not even coming from the plant. There's pharmaceutical companies that I work with that are trying to sell it to me. And it's not from a plant. It's synthetic. It's made in a lab.
Oh yeah, we know.
So Chris, hold on. Let's everybody take a deep breath. Everybody back into their corners, because this is getting too good. I mean, I got to take a breather. My mind's blown right now, because these are things that my wife and I have been talking about, and it's like we haven't been able to get answers, and now we have the Holy Grail. So Chris, I mean, we're going past our 30-minute mark, and so I wanted to say we want to welcome you back for a part 2. Will you?
Oh, absolutely. Please? I would love that.
All right, appreciate it, because my God, this is like one of those things like headliners. This is not fake news, people. This is real. This is real. So, guest, and just want to say, hey, to our listeners, we're going to go for a part 2. Thank you very much for tuning in, and please listen for our next episode with Dr. Adlakha. Chris, my God, this is amazing. So I'm excited. I can't wait to get to the second part. So we just want to say good night to everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and please tune in for the part 2. I just can't wait. I'm sorry. I'm lost for words right now.